Hey Jimmy, welcome to 5 Minute Sales Wisdom.
Hey, Lax, man. Thanks for having me on.
So Jimmy, last week you've said that you have a set of process that you're following for over the last 19 months and you get up to 80% response rates on your outbound prospecting. So it would be great if you could take us through the process of what's getting you up to 80% response rates.
Sure. Yeah. So to start out, I'd say there's two things that kind of happened in the beginning of when I started working at LeadIQ 19 months ago that made me kind of think a little bit differently about how I was prospecting. Number one is we were doing kind of just more template batch and blast emails, kind of segment a list of certain buyer personas that fit like a buyer profile, and then try to align messaging with those people, like certain titles that they had in certain industries, and then just send out emails. And it just wasn't working. Like out of the first 167 emails we sent, we got like one reply. So what I started doing after that was a little bit more tactical, because we were noticing just sending a template email got a 1.5% reply rate. But instead, by really working on not just the messaging, but also the targeting, really drilling down to identify the right types of accounts and the right people at those accounts that you're reaching out to, as well as the messaging. So the targeting and the messaging together to really be targeting the right people and the right accounts. And then for the messaging, making sure it's well-researched, targeted, and personalized at both the account and the contact level. You can't at the contact level, so if you're sending an email to a director of sales, that should look differently than if it's to the chief revenue officer or the Salesforce admin, and if you're sending an email to somebody from SAP, that should look a lot differently than if you're sending an email to your company, so that both at the contact and the company level is key. That resulted in a 20% reply rate just by really drilling down on the targeting and the messaging. But then also, I've had success doing double taps with calling and emailing simultaneously. And I'll hype up the email in the voicemail. So if I don't get through, then I usually will call first, because I figure why spend 5 minutes trying to type this email out, and then wait for them to see it and decide if they want to respond. And it's a lot easier for them to ignore an email. So I usually call first, and then if I don't respond, then I'll hype up the email in that voicemail, and in the voicemail I'll even say the subject line of the email that I'm about to send them. That just doing that upticks it to a 30% reply rate. And then also I saw an article by sales folk. They're kind of like Heather Morgan. They're kind of like experts in sales cold emails. That ran a study and said you got to do at least 8 emails in a cadence or sequence. If you're only giving up after 1 or 2 emails, you're giving up too early. You're leaving money on the table. You're not getting enough meetings, because the first 7, that's just like hearing a company's name or being exposed to their company's name or that person's name that's reaching out to you. It takes like 7 times for that to really register in your brain as familiar enough. And then by the 8th one, you're more likely to respond. Oftentimes you can get a response sooner than that, but you're leaving money on the table by not reaching out like more than 8 times. So by just making sure your cadences or sequences are at least 8 emails and at least 2 or 3 calls each, that bumps it up to a 50% reply rate from what I've been seeing. And then also a multi-contact approach. So don't just rely on one person at the company. You never know. Like a lot of the stuff that I ran into since I've been here in the last 19 months, I'll be talking to somebody and then they're like, and then I'll see on LinkedIn that they leave the company like 2 weeks later. Like it's a very, the job market these days, people come and go and leave jobs so if you're only reaching out to one person, that person they may have just gotten off a call 2 minutes ago with another job that they're interviewing for. Like they're not going to care about the product you're selling. They're on their way out the door. So always reach out to at least 2, if not 3 or more contacts per account. That got it up to a 60% reply rate. Doing all of that, plus using your personality and creativity in your messaging. So I've done some pretty creative stuff with different videos that I sent people and direct mail, sending stuff to people. and just being creative and thinking outside the box with different types of strategies and campaigns, that's gotten up to a 70% reply rate. And finally, I'm building your personal brand on LinkedIn, so prospects know who you are and see you as an authority and an expert in the space that you're selling into. That's gotten me up to an 80% reply rate. So that's kind of the formula that has been working best for me.